Hello and welcome to our kitchen table. I'm sitting here with my wife, your therapist, and today we're doing something brand new that has never been done before, or at least not on this podcast. You conduct a session, recorded it with the person's consent, and we're going to air it today, never before heard, for our listeners.
I'm so excited to get to do this. So I've had this idea for a while because I'd rather show and not tell about counseling. I'd rather really get to have people kind of join me in the room, join me in the space and see what it's like. And so somebody people might be familiar with if they've been listening to the podcast for a while or have gone back and listened to older episodes, got to join us and was willing to do an intake session with me.
Yeah, Emily Scott-Cruz, an old friend of yours.
Yeah.
Been on the podcast before talking about their experience with alcohol dependency and AA and getting sober.
Yep.
They've come back on and they basically go through a intro session with you or an onboarding session.
My full intake session. So there are a couple things that we don't do during the session. I don't go through all of the consent information because I also wanted it to feel true to us in the moment. And it's not a real session. I'm not doing the real consent. So that's missing. If you want to learn more about that, you can go back to the what to expect in your first session episode. But otherwise, it is a real intake session. It's exactly the questions I ask.
Real session. Yep. They talk about real stuff that's actually on their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were very excited to join in on this idea and get to share that with people.
Y'all miss me with that. Y'all ain't ever going to hear my my therapy session. That's for sure. Yeah. Well, as always, my name is Price, and I married your therapist.
My name is Ash, and I'm your therapist. And this is a podcast, not therapy.
Well,
except for today, where it's real therapy.
Well, let's jump over to the therapy session.
Let's do it. Emily, I'm so glad you're here today. So I had an idea a little bit ago that I wanted to get to do an intake session with somebody on the podcast. And I thought about doing it with Price. Everybody's pretty familiar with Price at this point. But a lot of people really, really loved the episode with you in it. And you were willing to record yourself doing an intake session. So here we are. How you feeling?
I haven't done one of these in a while, so this is exciting.
Perfect. Well, I do these every day, so it's going to be fine. I will lead the way. So basically, I just have for those of you listening at home, I have my form pulled up that I use for real intake sessions, and we're just going to go through the questions together. And Emily knows that they can share less if they need to, or share more, whatever. All of that's welcome. And so, we'll get started. Okay, so Emily, let's kick this off by asking your age. How old are you?
Oh, I am 29 years young.
Okay, beautiful. And then tell me about your gender identity. How do you identify?
I identify as genderqueer. My pronouns are they, them.
Beautiful. I take she, her pronouns. I guess I don't need to type everything like I normally would in a session, so I won't waste time with doing that. Tell me what you know about your sexual orientation.
I know that I am attracted to people who present in all different genders. I don't know if I've thought about whether I typically say bisexual because it's easier. Pansexual is probably more accurate of a description, though.
Honestly, I identify almost exactly the same way, where bisexual is so easy and more people know it, but I don't think that literally that definition is what fits me best. Where is your hometown? Do you refer to Charlotte as your hometown or somewhere else?
I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, which I claim even though I was only there for when I was born through third grade.
That counts.
Because Asheville is cool and there aren't very many natives.
It's nice to be an Asheville native. I like that a lot. Tell me what you do for work.
I plan transportation for different cities, which is surprisingly my dream job. And I really love doing it. I've been doing it for 4 years now, too, which is cool.
You say surprisingly your dream job. How did you fall into that?
I got an internship when I was in grad school.
Nice.
I went to grad school for public administration because
Okay.
I had no idea what I wanted to do after I graduated college.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't do anything with a women's studies degree, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of worked backwards from what I wanted to contribute to the world, which was like just have a positive impact on communities.
Yeah.
And I went to get my MPA thinking I wanted to open a domestic violence nonprofit.
Okay.
And then soon realized that nonprofits were not for me because like progress is slow anyway, but in nonprofits
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
slow and oftentimes unrewarding.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone in nonprofits, I'm very grateful for what you do, but like,
Oh my gosh, for sure.
whew, couldn't be me.
Yeah.
And then I fell into transportation planning.
Amazing.
And I love it.
That's so cool. What do you specifically love about it?
I like the opportunity to create greater equity within cities. That's my big kicker.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a big deal. You really are getting to have like a real impact in the space in which you live, which is such a cool thing to get to say about the job that you do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people need to get a job to pay the bills, and and that's great. That's what jobs are for. But if you can get a job where you also feel like you're getting to do something fulfilling, like what a special place to get to be in. So you mentioned school, and I think grad school. What sort of degree do you have?
I got my master's in public administration from UNC Charlotte.
Okay, amazing. This one is going to sound a little bit different on the podcast than how I normally do it, but tell me, usually what I'd ask is tell me a little bit about what's bringing you in, but what are kind of the present things going on in your life right now?
God, I feel like I typically pride myself on not having too much going on, but my partner did just move in recently with me. We've been together for a little over a year now.
Nice.
So that's some change. Hi, Alice.
I get to have a real life cat in session instead of just on screen.
I've got some things with different friends that I'm working through as well. I'm active, and in those friendships, I'm really trying to not let past codependent behavior crop up because I'm worried. And yeah, I think those are the big things in life. Like work is always, it's a constant by this point. So, and it's not as stressful as past jobs have been, which I'm really grateful for.
That's a help. Have you been in the job you're in right now for a while, or is it a newer place?
Since July. So I would classify that as new.
Pretty new?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's going really well. It's slightly different than what I thought it would be, but I think I just need to have some conversations to make sure it's continuing in a direction that I want, because I'm like really into transit.
Yeah.
And the company that I'm with doesn't really do transit yet. But one of the things in like the whole hiring process was discussions of me starting a practice in transit.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem like that's kind of a priority at the moment from upper management. And I think I just need to, express my needs.
Yeah.
And go after those projects.
It sounds like you really have a clear picture of kind of where you want to head, which I think is a really exciting thing. It's cool it got mentioned in the interview, and now honestly great for you to notice like, oh, this isn't heading where I thought that it would. Maybe I could say something. Maybe I can impact what's happening. Yeah,
and I've got a really, really communicative boss, which is not something that I had in my previous position.
Yeah.
So I know that I need to not like associate my past experiences with previous managers with this boss.
Workplace trauma is real.
Oh my God.
It's a lot to bring into the job.
I learned through this whole like new job experience that I've been conditioning myself to only work under pressure for so long that it was like, I kind of had a couple weeks, maybe even a month and a half or so where I was like, how am I good at this still?
Yes, yeah.
Because there's not like this overwhelming anxiety. I'm not working 50 hours a week, Yep. It's like 40 hours max.
Yeah.
And there's not pressure on me. So how do I actually still know how to do this?
Right. When you're maxing yourself out all of the time, you're like, this is working. Like, this is how I know I'm doing something, because I'm stressed and tired all of the time.
Yep.
And then getting into something new and being like, oh, I'm not stressed and tired all the time. Maybe I like it, but what do I do?
Yeah. So I'm like still relearning how to function in an environment that's not like I was having to take medication for sleep at one point because I got secondary insomnia from my anxiety.
Oh, no, yep.
Which we love.
We love that.
I've been sleeping great, but I'm still like trying to get into a flow of how to balance that with still giving quality work and also like realizing that that doesn't need to correlate with feeling anxious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. When you really have had to like commit yourself to a job in the way that it sounds like you had to at your last one, your job can become a big part of your identity. Has that been something that's been coming up now being in this new job and maybe having less of that stress and pressure all the time?
I don't. When I think about like how I describe myself to people, it tends to be like up there on the list is sober, a transit planner, and like I play ping pong. Like those are the things, and I play violin. Like there's like 4 things about me that I that I would identify myself as to people that don't know me.
Yep.
So I think like for me, professional life is always going to be a big factor in my identity.
Yeah.
But it's not one that like it's not limiting my other opportunities as
it sounds
like to just be a human right now.
And like you said, you're doing work that's actually fulfilling to you. So I think it's great to get to say work is part of my identity. I got into something I deeply care about and I'm deeply invested in. Is different than just like I do a job that I hate, but also that has now become part of my identity.
Yeah, and the thing is like I loved what I did before because it was the same thing. It was just a different company, but you burn out so much faster when you're working overtime all the time and you're on. I counted it, and I had worked 52 projects in the 18 months that I was with that job.
Oh my goodness, look at you.
Which is insane.
That's so
By the way, if there's
projects.
any consultants out there, y'all.
Anybody who's like in that territory would know that that's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Great work experience.
Sure. That's a lot.
But
it's a lot.
Quick burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And when you're given that many projects, it sounds like there's a lot that you're not in control of in terms of like how much you're getting to take on at a time. And oftentimes that has nothing to do even with like the person above you. It's just like the company itself or the organization itself. But my goodness. So you got through and you got to this new place. You talked about being codependent in your relationships before. Where was that showing up in your life and how are you now dealing with that? We don't need to get into your current stuff right now, but what was the past stuff sort of leading up to that? How are you staying aware?
Well, I do have I do have
there are cats.
I have ADHD cats. Too, in case that's not apparent. But I guess like it used to be mainly in romantic relationships.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work in that realm.
Yeah.
And the way I've done work specifically is I rely heavily on Codependent No More, which is an incredible book that I have since gotten into the practice of reading before I get into a relationship, at some point during a romantic relationship. And then if it ends, I read it afterwards too.
Yeah.
Haven't had to read it afterwards, but I have like referenced it over the last year or so, just in moments where I'm like, am I like putting somebody else ahead of my own needs?
Yeah,
what's happening here? Let me just check in and reference back to my little book. But it's been coming up in friendships lately because I really care about certain people.
Yeah.
And and I identify with them a lot.
Yeah.
And I see them doing things that like if I was doing, I would be really worried about me.
Oh, sure.
Or I would want someone else to worry about me.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to find a balance in like showing up for friends, but not like over showing up, if that makes sense, so that it's taking away from my own serenity and my own peace.
Yeah.
Because it can very easily bleed into that if I let it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
No, it sounds like, I mean, it's coming from a place of like a lot of empathy and love to be able to kind of put yourself in that person's shoes and go, oh, I would be worried if this were happening or whatever it is. And then at the same time to go, okay, but what is this now like costing me? How is this relationship now not something where we're both building each other up, but it's like become unbalanced in some way when we really let that codependency come.
Yeah, and a lot of people in my life, I'm keeping it vague because there
No,
are a handful of people who know that this podcast is happening because I can't keep myself quiet sometimes. But like a lot of it too comes up because like I see people who are younger than me who are doing things that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Particularly in relationships.
Oh, sure.
Like, I have been known to hold on to things that were unhealthy for so much longer than I needed to, just because I thought that was what you do.
Yep.
Or because I genuinely at the time thought that I loved and wanted to be with this person for the rest of my life, even though it didn't feel good and there were lots of things that were objectively wrong about different situations. And I like see other people going through this or making choices that I know I wouldn't make for myself today. And all I want for my friends is for them to like have the general joy and happiness that I get to like just wake up to.
Yeah.
Even in the fall when, you know, the sun goes down early and I want to die a little bit more than I normally want to die.
A little bit extra special seasonal
Yeah, a little
depression.
Spicy this time of year for me.
Depression.
Yeah. It's worse on the weekends for some reason. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that either.
No, you're good. It is really tough to watch people go through that and at the same time know that there was probably not something somebody could have said to you to change your mind about those relationships at the time. And it is so, so different to be inside of a relationship that isn't working for you, but that you're really working on, than to be outside of it and watch anybody else you love and care about go through. It seems so clear on the outside, and inside it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah. And I know that too. And it's like, that's the other reason that reading through Codependent No More, when I have friendships that trigger those issues in me come up, is so important for me, because I really do need to take a step back and be like, okay, their decisions don't affect you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, until they do, but that's not the situation that's happening. That's not what's happening right now.
No, it feels like it because I have feelings about it, and that does impact me, but it's not the same.
But no, I'm making other people's business my business in a way that I really have done a lot of work on not doing.
No, it sounds like you have done so much work to be able to get to this place where you can both feel frustrated and also go, it doesn't serve me to be more involved. I love you rereading the Codependent No More book. It sounds like it's a great like anchor for you to return to and kind of check in.
Yeah, definitely top 2 most influential books in my life.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, lovely. Well, we can move on to this next bit and we can come back if anything comes up. So something that's pretty typical in counseling is to talk about like what your goals are, and we're going to create a treatment plan around your goals. That's not something that I love so much. Because honestly, what we do changes in counseling. Like sometimes you come in with one thing and it turns out that there's really something else going on, or a situation occurs and it's about that. And I think that counseling should really just fit the person in front of you in the moment that they're in. But tell me a little bit about what you hope to see for yourself in the next 6 months, in the next year. What do you hope continues to change? What do you hope stays the same?
Well, you've given me such a lovely out, because this whole, what is your goal in counseling, frankly, is one of the things that has kept me avoiding my therapist for so long.
It's easy to do.
And it's partly like I forget by the next time I see her, which I'd been seeing her monthly for a while. Mm-hmm. I would forget to set the fucking goal, and then I would get to the therapist session and I wouldn't have a goal, and I would feel like a kid who hadn't done their homework.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's the worst feeling.
I don't have a goal. I do therapy because I know I need to do therapy.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know that therapeutically, what I really need to do, and what I'm in the process of figuring out, is getting a therapist in Charlotte, because my old therapist is incredible, but is in Asheville, where I had been living.
That's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would every once in a while because I moved here in 2021, so I started seeing her in 2019 when I got sober. So like I had a solid 2 years of seeing this woman in person.
Right, of just getting
even
to
if
be
it was with a mask, every
Mm-hmm.
once in a while it would be a Zoom session, but like I had 2 years, very familiar, very comfortable in her office. And then I moved, and I would go back every once in a while for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not feasible to do all the time.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm in such a post-COVID, which I know it's not post in any way, shape, or form, but
like here we are.
Culturally,
in the world
it feels like COVID never freaking happened.
Right.
That it's hard for me to like create the time and space necessary to do those sessions in a way that's meaningful and has an effect.
Yeah.
So like, so I think she could start feeling that, and that's when the goals came up. Okay. And then the goals came up, and I was like, I'm doing this because I know I need to. Like, I know I've had trauma.
Yeah,
this is one of the things you do. So anyway, point being, I need to find a therapist in Charlotte who focuses on EMDR, because a lot of my trauma I just don't remember.
Yeah, that's a big part.
I know something in me remembers it, and I would like to figure that out. Yeah. So that whatever ripple effects I know it has, can maybe stop rippling.
Right. It's still showing up in your life somewhere.
Yeah, every once in a while it shows up, and maybe I can't pinpoint it or pinpoint why, but like it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's not in 6 months. Let's be realistic. Time flies.
True.
I don't even know how it's almost 2024, quite frankly.
No. I mean, time was already such a weird construct. Just, but since COVID's happened and continues to happen, oh my God, time like has lost all meaning.
Yeah, I mean, plus we're getting older, so like.
Well, that happens too.
We have a warped perception of time.
Time is weird. So one of your goals, it sounds like, is
find a therapist. That's a solid goal.
Okay, that's a
solid
goal.
I need to find a therapist who does EMDR or some kind of, maybe not regression hypnosis. I don't even know if that's a thing. I've been watching a lot of X-Files.
Okay, good.
So that's maybe why that's coming to my brain. But like something to unlock whatever is locked.
So one of your goals is that like unlocking, and whatever path that takes, probably finding a new therapist, doing EMDR. This isn't usually the conversation I have during therapy, but this is great. This is useful. But then the main thing about that is you just getting to like understand more about what from your past is still impacting you, which is an excellent goal to have. And whether or not you feel like you've fully accomplished that in 6 months, it sounds like if that's the direction you're moving, that's a good place to be. Is there anything else that you think of in the next, 3 to 6 months that you really would like to see different in your life?
No, that's pretty cool. No.
That's so great. It's wild to be in that sort of place.
Maybe I would like to take a trip out of the U.S. in the next 6 months.
Okay. Yeah.
That's something, but that's a very achievable.
It sounds like build on this really like firm foundation that you have painstakingly like created for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh, that's awesome. I love that. That's also not the conversation I usually get to have. All right, tell me a little bit about your past counseling history. The things that I'm most interested in are, when did you start counseling? And then is there anything in counseling over your time in counseling that has really worked for you or really did not work for you that you would not like to repeat in counseling?
Oh, gosh. Some of those past traumas also affect my memory.
That's fair. Do you know around when you were starting?
Yeah. I know it was after I got sober the first time. So it had to have been like late 2017. Probably, knowing me, it was probably not late 2017. It was probably early 2018.
Okay.
And I started seeing a therapist. It was my first time in therapy. She was a friend of a friend.
Did you choose to go, or did somebody kind of send you to counseling? What happened?
I think
Who knows at the time?
I was in grad school, so I'm pretty sure, and I was going through a divorce too. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure my psychiatrist father recommended that I go to therapy, and my response was, I don't want to pay for it. And he said, well, what if I helped you pay for it? And I said, fine, I'll find a therapist. So I think that was like the catalyst.
Okay.
I don't remember being honest with that therapist. And I don't think I saw her for more than 6 months. And then I didn't have another therapist until I moved back to Asheville in 2019. And I know I wasn't honest with that therapist because I convinced that woman to make the suggestion that maybe I wasn't an alcoholic. At which point, after that therapy session, I went out and drank and had a really bad relapse for 3 weeks. So, like, I was already going to drink anyway, but I really did a good job manipulating that situation.
Yeah.
I saw her twice.
I'm surprised you stayed with the other person as long as you did when you didn't feel like you could be honest with them either, or you don't think that you were.
I don't think I was honest, but I don't think the way I see my general existence is pre-2019, there wasn't much honest about me. So I might have been honest with her about some things, but, like, probably not.
Yeah. A lot of times that, like, long-term dishonesty that's, like, happened, you know, for your whole life prior or whatever is about feeling like there's it starts somewhere. It's not like an intention to be dishonest with somebody. It's like, this part of me doesn't feel super acceptable. And then you can be dishonest and that is acceptable. And then you, like, build and build on that. And you can get to a place where you're in therapy and it's not even that you're intentionally trying to be dishonest. It's that you literally don't fucking know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I mean by that, but I know probably what you want to hear.
Yes.
And I know, especially.
And I was always good at that.
Right. Yeah. No, I can intuitively guess what you would like to hear in this situation. So let me hand you that and let's go from there, because that works well.
And there were some things that I was always honest about, right? Like, because I know that therapists know how to work on things like past sexual abuse and physical trauma. So, like, those things would always come up in conversation.
Yeah.
But the level of depth that I got into it, like, I haven't had, up until the therapist I started seeing in 2019, I don't think I've had, like, a genuinely, like, level conversation with someone, and, like, in a way where I went into that setting still maybe unsure, but I knew I needed help at that point. And I think because I knew I needed the help, I was willing to just let my guard down and spill my guts. To do. Spill my guts for, like, I wouldn't call it 4 years. It's not really 4 years because I've been touch and go for the last year.
Yeah, fair.
But
during that time, you really, like, went in and did the thing.
Went in and did the thing for at least a solid 2. I'll give myself a solid 2.5 years.
Okay, fair.
Up until when I moved,
Yeah. No, that's a long time. That's a good thing to be able to do. It sounds like you noticed that things went differently when you were finally able to do that.
Yeah, and for me, I think part of it was I went in knowing that she specifically focused on substance abuse.
Yeah.
Which is really important for me. I found out within the first, like, 10 minutes that she's been sober for, like, 20-something years. So, like, not only is she a substance abuse counselor, but she's like me. Like, she understands.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
She understands a big piece of my identity on a personal level. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Because, I say I identify as sober, but really I identify as an alcoholic.
Right.
And, like, if you're not an alcoholic, it's hard to understand the way an alcoholic thinks.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And I think even coming in with the best intentions, you can come in with a lot of bias, a lot of misunderstanding there, and getting to have a therapist who really, like, no, I get that.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. How can you be honest with somebody who, like, already is coming in with their own opinions about the very, like, difficult thing you're going to try to share?
Yeah.
Or just not knowing the way that, like, addiction functions in the first place. Yeah. Good for you for finding somebody who did those things. That's really cool. That makes sense.
And I think that I'm at a point where, like, I'm so much more comfortable with my identity today than I was 4 years ago. Yeah. That it's like when I go out to find a therapist, I'm not going to find one in the rooms of AA, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's not the goal in any way, shape, or form, because, frankly, I've actually got a community in the rooms now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see those people outside of a meeting.
Right.
You know? Like, I'm so good on that.
Yeah.
But I do know, like, the specific things I need to work on. And I think now it's just, like, find somebody that I can vibe with.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I think over anything else, what we've seen again and again, kind of in people's lived experiences and then in research, is that like if you don't trust the person sitting across from you, like you're not going to share. Who would? No, absolutely nobody would.
Yeah.
And if you do force yourself into a situation where you're sharing to somebody who you don't feel like gets you, who you don't vibe with, you're going to continue to like grow feelings of either resentment or just mistrust or of like defensiveness. Like none of that's a good fit. Find somebody you vibe with more than anything else.
Yeah.
More than a modality.
I am pretty sure that means I'm not going to find a cisgender male therapist.
Yeah. Maybe not the best person to see.
But again, there's a lot of trauma involved in my past. So like there's a reason for that, you know?
No, that's totally fair. You don't have to start with somebody where you have to overcome something just to like get in the room with them. That's a lot. That's too much to ask for a person to do. Oh my God. Is there something in particular that you know with past therapists at any point that really worked well and you'd love to repeat that, or something that really did not work and you would not like to repeat it?
God, vibe is such the wrong choice of word for this. But I really do think like the times I felt most comfortable in therapy have been when it's somebody that I can sense and intuitively just feel is present and genuinely just cares about, me being there.
Yeah.
And
it's
the same way I approach transit planning, right? Like, if I can sense that you love therapy as much as I love buses, we'll be good.
Okay, I feel you on that. Yeah.
But like, and I get that everybody has bad days, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But especially in the first session, if I can like feel that, please don't have a bad day on my first session.
Well, to be fair,
I won't come back.
Sure, people have bad days, but like you don't get to show up and do something shitty with transit because you're having a bad day.
That's correct.
Like you still have to show up and do your full fucking job, and you're allowed to expect that your therapist.
And I can take my 10-minute break and go whine about my whole job elsewhere. Yeah.
No, you're allowed to expect that like bare minimum from your therapist.
And it's an energy thing for me. Like I really can feel someone's energy, and that matters.
Well, I mean, it's so true. I think that that's a great term to use, and a lot of people use that as they're talking, but literally what's happening when we're connecting with somebody is that our nervous systems sync up with them. And when you're not vibing with somebody, when you're not feeling that energy, probably what's happening is that your nervous systems are doing separate things. They are somewhere else and not in the room with you. And like, you deserve more than that in therapy.
So there's a strong chance my next therapist is also neurodivergent.
Yeah. I highly recommend
really tend to vibe with neurodivergent people.
Yeah, we do tend to seek one another out, honestly, in all senses.
Yeah.
It's just such a good feeling to start trying to describe something about yourself, which is already hard to do. Like, how do you put language to our very like complicated, nuanced human existence? And to get to do that and partway through to have somebody go, oh, I get that. I really feel you on that. For whatever reason, either they've had the same experience or they're just able to connect with that in a different way. They're neurodivergent as well. They're whatever. They've gone through something shared. That feels nice. You're going to keep talking to that person.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Something that I like to tell folks when they have ever struggled in the past with feeling like they couldn't be honest in therapy is just that therapy feels super official a lot of the times. Like somebody's sitting there maybe taking notes and stuff is happening and your insurance is involved. Like it feels very official. And my encouragement to anybody going through that is, you can change your mind. Like it would be totally okay to show up one week and be like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I'm struggling with. And a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months later to show up and go, okay, so that's not totally it. And I want to try again with that. 'Cause it takes practice to be honest with ourselves and to even figure that out. Okay, the next part is talking about family. So tell me who's in your family and what are your relationships with those people. You can be as as minimal or as in-depth as you would like to be. And I say the same thing to clients, honestly, because sometimes it's a lot to talk about family.
Well, my immediate family is pretty small, which is nice.
Who's in your immediate family?
My mom and dad, they've been married for, oh shoot, I should know this, almost 45 years,
Nice.
I want to say.
Okay.
I can't.
Long time.
When they were
amazing.
23 and they were born in 57, if anyone can do math.
It's not me, but I believe you.
That long. It's been a long time.
A long time.
They're both doctors,
Okay.
and my mom is very intentional, very intense too.
Yeah.
My dad is I identify much more with my father.
Okay.
He is social. Loves to read.
Yeah.
Just a general nerd.
Love that.
Who also blends into any setting that he wants.
Okay.
They met and married in 6 weeks, which is
Wow.
still wild to me that the mother that I have known for my last 29 years of life
Yeah.
would ever do something like that.
Oh my gosh.
But when they married, my mom told him that she would not bear his children or do his laundry.
Okay.
And she didn't have me for 13 years. So
Yeah.
he eventually grew up enough for her to actually procreate.
Let's do this right now, but then I'm gonna need to take some time.
I was very planned.
Yeah.
They really wanted me.
That's honestly like a good
And then they had me, and then they realized 3 years later they needed another one. So I have a sister too.
Nice. So you and your sister are 3 years apart.
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
younger sister. She just got engaged. I guess it was a few months ago by this point. And she actually asked me to be her bridesmaid last week,
That's so sweet.
which I didn't think was going to happen
Aww.
because we're not the closest.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was kind of a dick to her when I was growing up.
It happens.
I had been mentally preparing for months to just show up to this wedding, which is not for another year, but they've already planned like everything because my sister takes after my mother and is insane in a wonderful way that makes her get things done.
Yep. That intensity too.
But I've been mentally preparing to just show up as a family member
Yeah.
for
And
a long
instead you
time.
got-
And then I got a letter in the mail that said, "Will you be my bridesmaid?"
Yeah.
And I didn't cry at all.
That's great. Why would you cry over something so sweet? Oh, that's really lovely. That's yeah. I mean, for that to come as like a surprise after you two not getting to share the closest relationship. Was there ever a point where you were super close, like when you were kids?
Not that I can recall.
there's been a
Also
lot of
I
distance.
have a lot of memory gaps.
That's fair.
My big T trauma
Mhm.
happened between the ages of 18 and like 20 and a half.
Yeah.
And I've come to find out it erased a lot of my previous memories
Mm-hmm.
that I did not realize that was a thing.
Yeah.
And maybe I also block it out because I was a dick and I don't want to remember that.
Oh my God, trauma can really, really mess with the way that our memory works.
But like, frankly, other people who I went to school with probably remember more about me than I do.
Mm-hmm.
In middle school, high school, elementary school.
Yeah. I feel that way
yeah.
looking back at my past too, that I think a lot of other people remember more about me than I would remember about
Yeah.
being there at all.
Like, I could tell you maybe a handful of stories from high school,
Mm-hmm.
but most of those involved like when we went to Europe and I decided to sneak down through the train when we were going into France because I could get alcohol there.
Yeah.
Somebody and I snuck off during the Louvre time, and we just found beer somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
the handful of things I can recall are not the things that necessarily should be
Right.
be what is recalled.
In some ways, they were like defining moments, but also not the way that you want to look back and be like, oh,
No.
let me happily reflect on high school memories. Like,
No,
yeah.
although I have since found some journals from high school that I still haven't actually gone through.
Yeah.
And I do now actively journal because I know that it helps my memory.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like literally just writing out what happened in a given day.
Yeah.
I know I can go back and remember it,
Yeah.
which really has helped me continue to form memories too.
That's cool. It really does create kind of a touchstone for us. Even if you don't say, I feel this way about this thing, oftentimes we can return back to that and go, I remember writing this. I remember being upset when I wrote this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool that you've been able to do that. It's really hard, I think, living with big gaps in your memory. That's really tricky.
It's great.
Yeah. Is there anything else about your family that feels particularly impactful or relevant for this?
I guess as of, Jesus, I'm so bad. I don't even remember the month this happened in.
That's okay.
Like,
a lot of times
August?
people with ADHD honestly have a completely different memory when it comes to calendar and time stuff.
I want to say it was maybe August.
Okay.
In August.
Like August of this year?
Yeah, like of this year.
Okay, so like somewhat recently.
Somewhat recently, my grandmother died. My last living grandparent died.
Was that mom's mom or dad's mom?
No, that was dad's mom. Okay. Mom's mom died in 2021, early 2021, and that was, I mean, kind of easier because like we had a Zoom funeral. Yeah. Because everybody was everywhere and nobody was flying.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a really long time coming. Both of my mom's parents dragged their feet on their death.
A little bit easier to anticipate that was coming.
Yeah. Although kind of my dad's mom, she lived till 95.
Wow. Okay.
And it's been like every Christmas for at least 7 to 10 years where we're like,
this could be the last Christmas.
Are you sure you want to come? You got to come to Houston. Yeah. You know, because this might be Abuela's last Christmas.
Yep.
And I'm glad I went last year. But also, it brought the whole family on my dad's side together.
Wow.
And it was kind of unexpectedly nice because they haven't historically been my biggest fan ever since I decided not to go to an Ivy League college.
How dare you?
Oh, I know. I went to an all-women's college.
How dare you?
Yeah, with a women's studies degree.
Yeah.
I'm doing great as the not doctor in my family. But it ended up being really nice to see everybody. And I didn't think I was going to cry because I normally do a really good job. I don't know if this is a good thing.
Really good job.
I compartmentalize quite well most of the time.
Yeah. And
I get there and my like 10, 11-year-old cousin, as soon as the service starts bawling his eyes out. And I was a puddle.
Yeah.
I was a puddle all day.
That's, I mean, so good for us. Like, we are so meant as humans to get to grieve, like, collectively. It's meant to be a thing that we do together in groups. That's why there's so much, like, just like there's ceremony around, like, weddings or births. There's a lot of ceremony in every culture around death and dying because like it's important that we're together and that we witness each other. And yeah, one of the most impactful things that can happen is seeing somebody else grieving,
especially
openly.
A cute little ginger kid. Who
could possibly hold back tears when you're around them.
Oh my God, not me.
Yeah,
I guess that's the only other family thing that immediately comes to mind.
No, that's a big deal. That's like it sounds like after a history of things feeling kind of one way for a while, you got to have like a joining together sort of feeling. And
it is also altering. I historically do not do Thanksgiving. I not only dislike the holiday in general, I really don't like whatever the hell it brings out in people. For the last few years, I've just run away and played ping pong in Washington, D.C. because they have a tournament every Thanksgiving.
Oh.
And this year, I'm not doing that because everybody's parents are dead officially.
Yeah.
And my sister's in California, so my parents are just going to be alone on Thanksgiving. So my partner and I are going to visit them for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you sound on it.
I love my parents. It's going to be fine. I have just really not done Thanksgiving in so long. And even when I did do it, I would avoid it by going to my partner's like Thanksgivings.
Yeah.
So they get Thanksgiving this year, and his family gets Christmas.
Okay.
And that's a whole other like. That's a whole other thing that I'm going to have to work through.
That's fair. It's a lot. And it sounds like this was really a big event in your life to do something that you have historically not done, not gone and done holidays. And it sounds like a lot in your life is different, both between like your grandmother's death, but also it sounds like in the sort of relationship you're in now and deciding to go do those things slightly differently. So yeah, you're allowed to feel complicated around it. It's
cool.
Complicated. It's cool too. Okay, here's the last thing that I'd like to talk to you about. There are 2 questions here. So tell me a little bit about what you view as your strengths. Everybody is always surprised by this question, and it's completely fair. When do you get asked about that? I just heard
family, and I was low-key like prepping my brain for relationships next. I'm like, okay, dodge that bullet. I think I'm funny. I don't know if everybody else does, but I'm relatively smart.
You're like clearly very smart.
I enjoy learning. I'm honest these days, which is a strength.
That's a big deal and like hard fought for in your life to get to that place.
I'm resilient. Oh, now I'm starting to feel cringy talking about my strengths. I'm much better at talking about my weaknesses. Does self-critical count as a strength? Because if so...
Lots of that. So we can go into the next bit of this question, too.
Okay, that's cool.
What do you do to help yourself cope and get by? So it can be things that you're really proud of or things that you're not as proud of, but what do you do to help yourself like make it through?
I vape compulsively.
Yeah.
I also sometimes over-caffeinate.
Lots of
I work out. I lift heavy weights now.
No way, get it.
Not That's super amazing. Heavy. It's not like CrossFit or anything, but it's high intensity interval training, which is super fun.
Yeah. That's a good time.
I used to compulsively play like hours and hours of ping pong, but ever since I started working out, I don't do that as much. But whenever I do, I'm much better at it because I have muscles now.
Oh, that's good. You've like really built a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Why do you think working out made you play less ping pong?
Oh, because I do it like 5:30 in the morning, and then by the end of work, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, you must be.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I did not today because I knew I was doing things after work. Let's see. I also probably use food as a coping mechanism still in a not healthy way.
I mean, food is a really, really reliable coping mechanism. It's why so many people
use
it.
It is really reliable.
Yeah, yeah. It's good, like, stimulation in a certain way. It's good soothing.
Yeah.
It's good for a lot. It's normal.
Yeah. It's not out of control at the moment, so it's fine.
No, that's normal. And it really fits in with, I think, the other ways you've both, like, really helped yourself and worked to this place, and also... that stuff is still going to show up. Like, we still need ways to soothe ourselves and ways to regulate.
I watch a shit ton of Netflix, too.
That's a good one. That's a good coping strategy. Some distraction or
so
like
much Netflix.
Yeah.
I really need to read more. The number of times someone's like, have you seen this show? And I'm like, yeah, wasn't it good? Even though I probably only remember an episode or 2 of it because I don't form memories with TV shows. Which kind of makes it fun to like go back every couple years and rewatch the Gilmore Girls or something.
Brand new, totally fresh.
Because why not? I don't remember any of it.
And it sounds like you're working on journaling as well.
Yeah.
That's something that you're doing.
I don't know if that's as much coping as it is like practical. I should probably remember what happens to me on a day-to-day basis.
Practical stuff is allowed to be coping.
Okay.
Okay. That's all of my specific questions for today. After all of that, is there anything else that comes to mind that you're like, oh, this is an important piece of the picture? Anything else from me?
I feel like I'm going to remember everything that is an important piece of the picture
as soon as we're done.
As soon as we wrap up.
That's allowed.
That's
generally what the next session is for.
Oh, that's how this works.
Yeah, so it like
Okay.
it does itself, you know? You don't have to push to find the thing today.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, cool.
Nothing else immediately comes to mind.
That sounds good. That's fair. All right. Well, that is everything for today. Now, as my friend, how are you feeling after having done all of that?
I feel like at some point over the last few years, you've probably already heard a lot of this.
I have gotten to hear a lot of it. I think that this is a really interesting like structure to go through because certain parts of it bring up other parts of it as well, and that's help. I've definitely heard bits and pieces and to kind of like string it all together in a format I'm very familiar with at this point.
I feel like we need to do a reverse one of these at some point, even though I have no licensure in therapy. So maybe I can form memories about you.
I'll hand you the questions.
This feels uneven now.
Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that exactly the way that you approach this, obviously you're doing this in a way where you're like very aware of being witnessed while you're doing it. You're sitting in front of a microphone and there's a camera and Price is in the room, and this is a little bit of a weird place to be. But in general, I think it's really important that everybody knows that like you're allowed to approach this the same way. We're all a little bit aware of being like viewed and observed when we're in therapy, and I like that you got to really expound on certain things, and other things were like not today. And I'm glad that you modeled that for everybody, because that was lovely. You did such a great job. Well done. All right, thank you so much. We'll wrap up.
Many thanks once again to Emily Scott-Cruz for coming over. And
thank you, Emily. We love you so much.
Yeah, that was cool. I hope that if you were able to listen to that, it gives you an idea of what your first therapy session might be like.
Yeah.
And I'll say that if your first therapy session isn't quite like that, then perhaps maybe it wasn't a good first therapy session, because that's kind of what it should be.
They can look all sorts of different ways, and I feel like I was struck while recording this episode and then just afterwards about how different each intake session is. But this is a really solid example of what it can be like, and I hope that you get to have an intake session listener that is just as affirming and open and non-judgmental.
Do you have any other thoughts to share with us?
I don't think I do. Once again, there are a few other technical things I usually go through in a session. I let people know, about confidentiality. I let them know about if they see me out in public, how we'll deal with that sort of interaction.
Yeah, we won't be broadcasting your actual sessions, right?
Right.
Emily Scott-Cruz is not actually a client of yours.
Yes, yeah, it's real therapy, but it's not real therapy. But yeah, I guess my encouragement is just that it doesn't have to be scary. And there are a couple of times I think you'll notice in this episode where we get onto something that to me I'm sensing is a little bit touchy. And for the sake of it being a podcast that's being recorded and shared, I make sure to back off as a therapist. But I do the same thing in therapy with my clients all the time. We're doing an intake session. We get into something that somebody's just not quite ready to talk about yet. And that's okay. Even though therapy is a safe space where, yes, you can absolutely share your deepest, darkest, whatever.
You're still getting to know somebody. Like, there is a
You're
process.
still getting to know somebody.
Yeah.
And I never expect that my clients come in the first week and just already feel like they're ready to share everything. And I love getting to do that. So that's another thing to look out for as you're starting sessions. If you go for a first session and you just feel pushed into trying to answer questions that you're not ready to talk about, make sure that you're seeing a therapist who's willing to walk that path with you at whatever pace you need.
Yeah, therapy should feel uncomfortable at times, but certainly not in that first session, right? You
should feel comfortable. That first session to me is all about just building a relationship.
Yeah.
We can get through just a handful of questions if what you really need to do is spend a lot more time talking. And sometimes I've gotten through those questions in the first half hour of a 50-minute session. Been like, would you like your time back? Or would you like to start a session now? Would you like to start talking about our next thing?
Right.
So I love how it can be just self-paced. That's important.
Well, Emily Scott-Cruz, we want to thank you for your time. Appreciate you. Ashlyn, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Price, thank you for your time.
And we'll see y'all next time on I Married Your Therapist.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm gonna cook dinner. Are you hungry?
I'm going for dinner.
It's a little early.
It's a little early for dinner.
What do you call it when it's 4 p.m.? I'm hungry, though.
Yeah. Don't hobbits have a meal for that? I'm pretty sure there's a meal.
I like you.
I got you.
I like you. Yeah, we'll do that.
A hobbit meal.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next one.